Now, the last part of this, which I have to fill in this syndrome, is that when you get back to camp, and if you're a grasshopper, you know what happens next? I don't know if you can see it. I'll write it down here. It's panic. Panic. That's the last piece here. And if you look at the end of this chapter, and I'm looking at chapter, or at verse 39. The people, basically what they said was, Moses reported what God was going to do about the 40 years, and the people set up a great outcry. They cried, and then they rose early the next morning, you know? That's what happens. You're down, and you wake up the next morning because you can't sleep. You're so upset with yourself. They rose up the next morning and set out for the heights of the highlands, saying, look, we are setting out for this place. They've forgotten everything now. You know, God has just told them you're going to go wandering. So here's what happens. He said, Moses says, this is in verse 41, why disobey the command of Yahweh? Nothing will come of it. Do not go up, for Yahweh is not among you. Do not get yourselves beaten by your enemies. Now they want to go up there and charge the Canaanites, even though they know God has said no. But they're going to make it. They're going to make amends. You know, they're going to suddenly try not to be grasshoppers. They're panicked. They're trying to make up for everything instead of praying about it, instead of confessing, instead of remembering what their strength was. They panic. And so what happens? He says, yet they set out. And how did they set out? Presumptuously towards the heights of the highlands. Neither the ark of the covenant of Yahweh nor Moses left the camp. They went by themselves. And of course we know what happened in the next verse. They were roundly beaten back, and many died, and it was a disaster. And Kadesh stands as this terrible place where this syndrome, this is what happened. This is what happened to the spies and what happened to the people. And they ended up spending the next 40 years wandering. And the next chapters, from chapter 14 to 19, through those 19 chapters, we have very few details of what happened. Many scholars think that instead of staying as 3 million people, they broke up into smaller groups so that they could find water. It was a miserable time. And we come to chapter 20, and Adele will come up. And where do we come after 37 years? We come back to Kadesh. After 37 years, Adele's going to take us back to Kadesh. And we'll see what happens there. But I hope you remember what it was that really happened with these spies. They had the strength. They got afraid. They forgot who the strength was. They came back, and instead of being bold like Caleb and Joshua, they became grasshoppers. And worst of all, they then panicked.
I'm going to be talking about chapter 20, and they're at Kadesh. And old habits returned. It's a situation about water rights. Where is the water? I'm in the desert. How many of you people have been to the desert? You know how important that water is. And it seems even more important when you're in the desert. And so the first time, which is in Exodus 17, 1 through 7, the people complain about water. And so Moses strikes a rock and brings forth the water. The Lord told him to do that. But now, in chapter 20, it's a different situation. They're complaining again, but Moses made a big mistake. a very big mistake. The people complain. They talk about the past. Do we do that when we complain too? How much better it was? How much better it was in Egypt than the other place. And so Moses and Aaron, they go to the tent and they talk to the Lord. They throw themselves down on their face on the ground. I don't know how many of you people have ever done that, but I've done that. Pray to the Lord, and I've really gotten wonderful answers. You might want to try that sometime. And they asked Yahweh what to do, and Yahweh said, take the branch and call the community together, you and your brother Aaron. Then, in full view of them, order this rock to give water. You will make water flow for them out of the rock and provide drink for the community and their cattle. That was his big mistake. We'll see what it is. Moses took up the branch from before Yahweh, and as he had directed him. Then Moses and Aaron called the assembly together in front of the rock and addressed them. Listen now, you rebels. Shall we make water gush from this rock for you? Moses raised his hand and struck the rock twice with the branch. Water gushed in abundance, and the community drank, and their cattle too. What was the difference?
This is we.
We.
He spoke and did instead of hitting one.
All right, and the first time the Lord told Moses to hit the rock. And the second time the Lord told Moses to command the rock. And so Moses disobeyed the Lord right away. His words. He was claiming what was happening there, not the Lord. As a matter of fact, in verse 12, he describes that. Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not believe that I could proclaim my holiness in the eyes of the sons of Israel, you shall not lead this assembly into the land I am giving them. I was always thinking that was a bad deal for Moses. All that work, all those years of suffering, all of that, listening to people griping and complaining, and he doesn't get to go there. But then I had to take a look about what the Lord was doing. Here it is. Obedience, that word again. And the other word, words. His words. So that's very important things about it. He was not giving God full credit when they said we. We make the water gush. They were not giving God full credit. Have any of you had healings from the Lord in this room? I think sometimes we need to give God full credit. I've had a lot of healings, and I have found that when I go to my church body, or I come here to GSM, and I praise the Lord for the healings, it just expands and keeps going on for days and days and days. So the principle here is that we should give God credit, glory for what he does in our lives. So now we're going to go on with the rest of the story. By the way, I borrowed this from David, but I thought this was very good. The levels of faith, and you can see this in this story, is the first level, people have to believe he exists. Well, there's Moses, there's God the zapper. You'd believe he exists, wouldn't you? He kills off your sister, kills off the people, the burning bush. Right there, you know he exists. Then you have to know him. You have to know him. And then you have to experience God, what he's doing, to build your faith. And these people are building their faith all along in this journey, and the Lord is teaching them in many ways which we wouldn't want to learn ourselves.